Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. This time we're taking a look at a story from the Bible, specifically the book of 1 Samuel.
Yeah, 1 Samuel chapter 4 to be exact.
Right, chapter 4. It's a story that's full of twists and turns, battles, a sacred artifact.
And some pretty dramatic consequences that really shaped the future of a nation.
So to set the stage, we've got the Israelites who are at war with the Philistines.
And things aren't going so well for the Israelites.
Understatement of the century, right? They just suffered a major defeat, lost 4,000 men. I mean, can you imagine being in that situation? The morale must have been just...
Absolutely. Talk about a crushing blow.
So, desperate for a win, they decide to bring out their secret weapon.
Their ace in the hole. They decide to bring the Ark of the Covenant to the battlefield.
Okay, hold on. Time for a quick Bible lesson. The Ark of the Covenant, for those who maybe haven't cracked open a Bible in a while,
Right.
what was it and why was it such a big deal to the Israelites?
So this was no ordinary chest. This was the symbol of God's presence among the Israelites. This was the ultimate sign of God's power and their special covenant with him.
Covenant being like a sacred agreement, a promise.
Exactly. And to really understand the significance, you have to picture it. This wasn't just something they whipped out for special occasions. This was kept in the most sacred part of the tabernacle, the Holy of Holies.
Wow, so not something you just casually take for a spin?
No, definitely not.
So they're bringing out the Ark, thinking this is going to guarantee a victory. I mean, who wouldn't feel a surge of confidence with that kind of divine backup?
I'm betting the Philistines were shaking in their boots when they saw that coming.
You'd think so, right? And at first, it seems like that's exactly what's happening. The Philistines, they see the Ark, they're terrified. They even acknowledge the power of the Israelite God. They're thinking, we are doomed.
Okay, so the Israelites have them right where they want them, right? Divine intimidation tactic. Check. Victory is surely at hand.
You would think so, right? But here's where things take a turn. Are you ready for this? Hit me with it.
The Israelites, despite having the Ark, despite the Philistines being totally freaked out, they still lose the battle.
Wait, what? They bring the Ark, their ultimate weapon, the Philistines are terrified, and they still lose. How is that even possible?
It's mind-boggling, right? And it's not just a loss, it's a devastating loss. We're talking 30,000 Israelite soldiers.
30,000, that's unfathomable.
It's a massacre. And to add insult to injury, not only do they lose the battle, but the Philistines capture the Ark.
No way. The Ark. Talk about a crushing blow. This isn't just a military defeat. This is a full-on spiritual crisis.
Exactly. It's like their faith, their identity, everything they believed in, it just crumbled.
I mean, their most sacred object, the symbol of God's presence, is now in the hands of their enemies. That's got to be just a gut punch.
Absolutely. And the news travels back to Eli, the high priest.
Oh, Eli, the guy who's supposed to be, the spiritual leader.
Yeah. And the weight of this tragedy, it's just too much for him. He falls, breaks his neck, and dies.
Wow, tragedy upon tragedy. And to think all this because they thought bringing the Ark would solve all their problems.
It's a stark reminder, isn't it, that sometimes we focus on the outward, the superficial, instead of dealing with the deeper issues. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound.
Yeah, a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. I like that.
And unfortunately, the story doesn't end there. Phinehas's wife, Eli's daughter-in-law.
Who was pregnant, right?
Yes, she hears the news, the defeat, the loss of the Ark, the deaths of her husband and father-in-law.
Oh my gosh, it's an avalanche of grief.
It's truly heartbreaking. And it proves to be too much for her. She goes into labor, gives birth to a son, but dies soon after.
Oh, that's just so sad. To bring new life into the world amid such immense loss, it just amplifies the tragedy.
It really does. And the name she gives her son before she dies, Ichabod, which means, the glory has departed from Israel.
Wow, that name just hangs in the air, doesn't it? It really encapsulates the despair and the sense of abandonment the Israelites must have felt.
It speaks volumes. They've lost something far more precious than just a battle. They've lost their hope, their connection to something greater than themselves.
And it makes you wonder, where did they go wrong? What happens when faith becomes misplaced? And is there a way back from such a profound loss?
Those are some really big questions, and ones that we'll explore as we continue this deep dive into 1 Samuel chapter 4.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think we're just scratching the surface here, and I'm eager to see what other insights we can uncover as we go deeper into this story.
Me too. It's amazing how these ancient stories can still speak to us today, thousands of years later.
Absolutely. So stick with us as we unpack the timeless wisdom of 1 Samuel chapter 4 and see what lessons we can glean for our own lives today.
There's a lot to unpack, so let's dive in. You know, it's easy to judge the Israelites, to think, how could they be so foolish to put their faith in an object? But haven't we all been there at some point, looking for that quick fix, that easy solution?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Like we want to skip the hard work, the inner growth, and just jump straight to the results.
Exactly. But it's like building a house on a foundation of sand. You might think it looks good for a while, but as soon as a storm comes along.
The whole thing collapses.
Exactly. And that's what happened to the Israelites. They were so focused on the outward symbol, the ark, that they forgot about the real foundation of their faith.
Their relationship with God, their commitment to his principles, the stuff that really matters.
Right. They were all about appearances, but they neglected the substance.
And speaking of neglecting things, let's talk about Eli, the high priest. He was supposed to be the spiritual leader, setting the example right.
Yeah, he was the one who was supposed to be guiding the people, keeping them on the right path.
But instead, he lets his own sons, Hophni and Phinehas, run wild, abusing their positions, corrupting everything.
And he knows it's happening. He sees what they're doing, but he doesn't do anything about it.
Maybe he was afraid of conflict, or maybe he just hoped things would magically sort themselves out.
Maybe. But sometimes true leadership means having those tough conversations, even when it's uncomfortable.
Absolutely. It's like being a parent. Sometimes you have to set boundaries and force consequences, even when your kids don't like it.
Exactly. And it's not just about personal accountability, it's about recognizing that our actions have consequences for everyone around us.
So bringing this back to our listeners, how do we see this idea of accountability play out in our own lives today?
It's about being willing to speak up when we see something wrong, even if it's risky or unpopular.
It's about holding ourselves and others accountable for our actions, making sure we're living in alignment with our values.
It's about having the courage to say no when something doesn't feel right, even if it means rocking the boat.
Yeah, and recognizing that sometimes those small compromises, those times we look the other way, can have a ripple effect.
And lead to much bigger problems down the road. It's about recognizing that accountability, both personal and collective, is essential for a healthy society.
So we've talked about misplaced trust, about accountability, but there's another piece to this puzzle, right?
What's that?
The Israelites' obsession with finding that quick fix, that easy solution.
Ah, yes. Their attempt to solve a complex problem with a superficial solution, like slapping a Band-Aid on a gaping wound, as we said before.
Exactly. Bringing the ark to the battlefield might have felt good in the moment, but it didn't address the real issues.
Their lack of faith, their disobedience, their failure to truly connect with God.
And it's something we see all the time today, isn't it? This desire for instant gratification, for shortcuts, for magic solutions.
We want to lose weight without changing our diet or exercising, get rich quick without putting in the work.
We want to fix our problems with a pill or a product instead of doing the real inner work.
But true transformation, real growth, that doesn't come from quick fixes. It comes from digging deep, confronting our own limitations, and making a conscious choice to do things differently.
It's about that deep dive, that willingness to go beneath the surface, even when it's uncomfortable.
And to remember that real change takes time, it takes effort, it takes commitment.
So what does all of this mean for us, here and now? How do we take these ancient lessons and apply them to our modern lives?
It starts with asking ourselves some tough questions. What are the arcs we might be clinging to? What are the deeper issues we need to address?
What are the areas where we might be looking for a quick fix instead of doing the real work?
It's about getting honest with ourselves, about taking responsibility for our choices, and about remembering that we have the power to create change.
It's about remembering that we don't have to settle for superficial solutions. We can choose to go deeper, to do the inner work, and to create a life that's truly meaningful and fulfilling.
And that's a journey worth taking, isn't it? Even if it's not always easy.
Wow, this deep dive into 1 Samuel has really given us a lot to think about. It's amazing how a story from so long ago can still feel so relevant to our lives today.
Isn't it, though? It's like those themes of faith and leadership and trying to find our way when things are tough. They're just universal.
They really are.
Mm.
So as we wrap up, what's the one big takeaway you hope our listeners will walk away with?
I think for me it's this. True strength, real strength, it doesn't come from outward symbols or rituals or anything like that.
It's about something deeper.
Yeah, much deeper. It's about a genuine connection to something greater than yourself, whatever you consider that to be.
Right, and living a life that aligns with those deepest values.
Exactly. It's not about checking boxes or going through the motions.
It's about cultivating that inner strength and letting it guide your actions.
Absolutely. It's an ongoing process, an inner journey that we're all on.
And sometimes that journey takes us to some pretty unexpected places.
Oh, for sure. It challenges us, stretches us, makes us question everything we thought we knew.
But ultimately, it helps us grow and evolve.
It's that willingness to dive deep, even when it's uncomfortable, that allows for real transformation.
So for our listeners out there, we leave you with this. What area of your life might need a deep dive? Are you holding on to any arcs?
Where are you settling for a quick fix?
What's one small step, just one, you can take today to move towards a more authentic and meaningful life?
Don't be afraid to ask the tough questions,
To challenge your own assumptions.
to embrace the journey wherever it might lead.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you'll join us next time for another fascinating exploration.